Hey guys, apologies for the delay. We've switched over to a new streaming service. If you don't know, YouTube has stopped letting us use Google Hangouts. They were supposed to be for April 1st. Looks like it's October now, but us being little busybodies we decided to prep early. If you see now, we got StreamYard. Going to be doing some testing on this one. I did it on Thursday with the Patreon guys, doing it today with Carl, and then if all goes well, we'll do this full-time with StreamYard and not look for an alternative. But enough about me. How about you, Carl? How you been?
Well, it was actually hard this week because, normally there are a lot of things in the soyosphere that pisses me off, but
Oh, yeah.
it's been a pretty good week. I mean, apart from, some old dude stealing our content, it's like we're doing pretty well, aren't we? I mean, I have been trying to get a hold of a flamethrower because I do feel utterly surrounded and locked in by strawmen. I mean, what happened to having a sensible debate about an issue to refine one's knowledge? I mean, Twitter these days is like being constantly interviewed by a few million of the, the chick who did the Peterson interview. It's like,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
lift weights. So what you're saying is I'm a pussy for doing cardio. Fuck you, buddy. Spin plates. What you're saying is go around ruining high quality women for their future husbands. You fucking degenerate. It's like wage cuck or fake entrepreneur, cuck or literal pimp, good versus evil. And some of these motherfuckers even quote Nietzsche one second, then call you evil the next. You are aware that he kind of wrote the book on Beyond Good and Evil, right? Like, I'm not the guy who's going to tell you to read 80 books by dead motherfuckers who didn't even lift. That's another dude. But if you're quoting people, at least know a little bit about them. It's like that chick who has the one Stalin quote about capitalists, and she has no idea who the hell Stalin was. Blame the American public school system on that shit. And, guys get off on these fucking quotes and get ego invested in shit like skin in the game, clean your room, and not Lindy. And they didn't even read the book. So I ask them to define skin in the game. And, they're like, well, I'm married. Well, okay. What's your point? It's all ego investment. Like, the guy is like, I got married. If you don't, that means you think I'm a retard for getting married. If you don't buy into my ego investment, that means you think my ego investment is shit. And that's like me thinking I'm the Fonz and you telling me I'm Urkel. Fuck you, man. Put a baby in her now or you're calling me a cuck. And the thing is, I get it. People think that if you don't do what they do, you're telling them that they don't have the best strategy for the game. And as a former gamer, I get why that's insulting. It's like, Mage is the best character. To be honest, man, I kind of prefer playing a warrior. Fuck warriors, man. Mages rule. I swear to God, like, Manosphere is turning into an EverQuest forum in 98. Like, I get that we have a lot of former and current gamers on coming into this space here, and there's a huge market for the 100% completion GameSpot strategy guide to the high value main game. But goddamn, I mean, I guess if I can make $9.99 off it and maybe make it into a $197 course, well, fuck it. Okay, guys. So during character creation, you'll have a lot of options. But for most, it's going to be restricted a bit on the first playthrough. Your sex will be locked in and can't be changed unless you get a new skin in a surgery loot box. The first rule of your character creation is don't make it a fatty. If you have the deluxe edition, make sure you also get it to be 6 foot tall and really muscular. Come on, if you're not ripped to the gills and look like a pro bodybuilder, you'll never get any pussy ever. In fact, if you have more than 2.4 ounces of fat on your body, you're pure soy. Don't pass go, do not collect $200 and go straight to jail. And, at least when you get out of jail, you can be a life coach who berates his customer base, threatens to end guys, and talks about how to be a good, upstanding, moral citizen. Nothing hypocritical about that at all. And, once you're done with character creation, you'll spawn in a random open world location and go through the standard tutorial. This is a pretty long session, so make sure you got a couple of Mountain Dews and some cupcakes to keep you company. But, don't get fat. The goal in the tutorial is just to get through it without ending up in jail, fat, devoid of social skills, or marrying a single mom. Don't get fat, seriously. I cannot emphasize this enough. You don't want to look like your whole life is a long episode of Man versus Food. Now, once you finish the tutorial, you'll find yourself in an open world location with a lot of female NPCs running around doing random shit. Your objective is to talk to these NPCs to try and figure out the magic combination of words that unlocks their pants. Be aware that the drop rate will be fairly low in the beginning, especially if you go after the high difficulty NPCs. You can recognize those by resting bitch face, fast walking pace, and headphones. A quick guide on how to tell NPC bitches apart. Brunettes, blondes, black-haired, and redheads are all normal NPCs. You can go after these and just grind them out. Now, blue, green, or purple hair denotes higher levels of bitch, and they have very high drop rates, but their loot table is all shit. Green has the lowest drop rates, but their loot table can sometimes have decent stuff in it. Blue denotes a bit higher drop, but more crap. And finally, the purple-haired NPCs have a very high drop rate, but they're more likely to dump all their epic shit on you. So there's little point in trying to slay them. It's really simple, though. It's like, don't do dumb shit. Like, men love to complicate things the second they disagree with you. Like, how do you define TradCon? Do you have empirical data that purple pill coaches vet subjectively? It's how you know you finally challenged an ego investment. Like, dude, you didn't ask for your girl to define cheating before marrying her. You didn't ask her for objective proof she didn't get piped down by the Harlem Globetrotters, and now you're Karl fucking Popper? I mean, you require zero evidence to take on your religion. You required zero evidence to take on your values. You required zero evidence for your girl staying faithful to you. I mean, why are you suddenly a research scientist? Come on, man. Everyone knows that one dude. You know, the boyfriend chameleon? The second he starts to date a new girl, his whole personality switches. It's like the guy is hardcore red pill, complete with the armband and the Rollo Tomasi poster in his gaming room, and then he gets a girlfriend, and suddenly he's on that fucking Naval train. Like, my golden special. She's not like them hoes. Respect women. Jesus Christ, man. A fucking Etch-a-Sketch has a more permanency than your fucking personality. And it kind of bugs me because this whole idea of values, morality, and so on are as rules that stay reasonably static over time. Like, if you're like, fuck these hoes, money over bitches, bros before hoes, and the next fucking minute you're like, I love her, she smells nice, I can't go out with you guys tonight, we're making cupcakes. I'm just waiting for the next cult to snap your ass up so you can be bled dry for all 14 steps up the bridge, then to become the operating masculine level 7, where just looking at red meat brings your T to over 9,000, and just being in the proximity of a barbell makes you shred to 10% body fat in nanoseconds. I mean, sign up for Jordan Addicts right now and get 10% off our Man Up and Marry Those Sluts starter pack, beard sold separate. It's like, for the love of God, whatever happened to just doing things and not buying into all this shit? I mean, what's the... I don't even get what the point is with the whole thing, because it's essentially like they're just looking for new cults to join, and it's just a matter of time before they find the one that finally makes them drink the goddamn Kool-Aid.
I was trying for comedic effect to take a sip of my iced tea right there. I couldn't do it. I can't do it.
No, but I mean, you have some of these guys, and they get so invested in the soyosphere. It's like they have all the stuff. They have the Rollo Tomasi poster. You know, they have the Pook name tag.
At least they know Pook this time.
Yeah, well, you know, you kind of have to. I mean, Pook is like the what was the band?
Journey?
Axl Rose was in before Guns N' Roses. It's like the ultimate hipster shit when you like a famous musician before they were in the band that actually made them famous. Like, you know, all the bands they were in growing up. Like,
I wish I knew.
Manosphere hipsters. It's like I knew the Manosphere back when Poop was still new.
I just wish that was the problem. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I'm not too proud to admit I just started reading Ryan Holiday, even though I've been interested in his stuff for the longest time. And I have a hard time thinking that half this stuff is actual beef anymore. Although I could just ask Bruno what I thought about it last week, and I'm sure he could tell me.
But fun thing, though, I actually knew Ryan Holiday back when he was Tucker Max's bad boy.
Yeah, well, that's what the book was talking about there. What do you remember anyway? Because I was kind of out of the space at that point.
Well, I don't remember much of it because, Tucker Max used to have this message board attached to his website.
Yeah.
It was actually a pretty good site to go on because a lot of his readers who were active there were actually pretty switched on.
Wow, that's actually surprising. I was expecting it to be dude bros.
Well, surprisingly not, because like Tucker and like he had a group of like 4 or 5 friends on there, like people he knew in real life.
Right?
And they were really harsh with kind of cutting people down if they weren't contributing value.
Kind of reminds me of Wine More Please then. I get that. So that's weird. Yeah, I saw that new one too, where the guy, I got to be somebody's favorite psychopath, which was kind of neat. It's flattering, I guess. Surprised you didn't make that list. You're way better at it than I am.
Who's calling you a psychopath?
I don't know. It's Coach something or other. All I know is if you're calling somebody a psychopath or a sociopath, you're not doing it properly. And he was so energetic and he had so many words going so fast. I couldn't follow half of it, but he said my name and he said nice things. So, thanks and good shout outs.
Yeah,
but I guess
I just think that I don't like the biggest legacy of upstream Twitter is that they legitimized like the guy who can't write a hook worth a damn, but who puts out a mixtape with like 8 tracks of him shit talking Jay-Z.
It's all diss tracks.
Yeah, it's the new building a following in the manosphere is just dissing the biggest name you can find. It's the manosphere. It's not fucking jail. You don't have to walk up to the biggest guy in the lunch line and try to stab him on your first day.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm in the 5-figure Twitter following club, so I get to be a part of this now. It's going to be so much fun. Finally get to play with you big boys.
Hey, you're only at 10K. 10K is easy. But it's when you start passing like the 20K mark, that's when you start having a lot of assholes.
Ooh, fair enough. So I still got another 10,000 people before I can start acting like you, where I have to temper what I say. Because I guess for the audience, if you guys don't know what that means, well, you kind of are. Like, guys, our DMs, as funny as he is on public Twitter, his DM Twitter, 3 times better. And I wish I could say a lot, but there's some bannable TOS offenses in there, so I'll leave it there.
The whole thing is, what gets me is like I could go off on people a lot more than I do, but whenever you do that with, when you're at like 30, 40,000 followers,
you're boosting.
Number one, if you go off, you're actually giving them marketing because there are going to be like a few people in your following is like, okay, why is Carl going off on that guy? I'm going to check out what he's saying. So it's just a matter of I just don't like giving people free marketing. I mean, if they pay me something on the back end, I'd do it, but I'm still not going to risk getting banned by the memes I drop in DMs. They're way, way worse than the ones I actually dropped in public.
Even in the 90s, you'd have gotten booted. But yeah, I was thinking on that. Like I said, going back to that, I'm just starting to realize I don't think anybody really is even angry. I don't think those feminists are angry. Like I said, I did the AJ thing, which did the Rich thing, which did the Ryan Holiday thing. Tell a woman that boiling water is a good thing. They get mad at you. 10 people join your followings. It seems very repetitive. But I guess this really isn't on the topic anyway, is it? Because we were supposed to be talking about stepping on your own dick and ego investments. Although I guess this is part of it.
Well, this is kind of an ego investment thing too, because a lot of the time when you get these kind of, I like to call them tiffs, because they're not actual fights. I mean, like I wasn't even mad. I was somewhat frustrated at one point, but at some point it went from being like, what can I call it? It went from being some level of animosity to being pure marketing.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. I will say the only time I saw what looked like genuine anger coming from a beef was when AJ told Rolo to shut the fuck up. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, I saw that.
That one made me laugh. Out of all this crap, that's the only one I actually believed. But you're right. It's
the whole thing with those lists, though. The reason why it kind of gets on my nerves is that most of the time the guys who are posting them would they enforce them? No fucking way.
Oh God, no.
I happen to know that a couple of the guys who posted those lists have gone against at least half of it in their personal life. So it's part virtue signaling towards their audience, and it's part outrage marketing. And I can't stand fucking outrage marketing. I found myself thinking the other day, do we really need another American election right now? Can we just give it like 4 or 5 years?
Oh, I know. For you guys, Americans in the audience, the Europeans and the Canadians and the Australians, they're entertaining, but geez, you really screw up our internet surfing because we have to worry about getting banned from everything because you guys running the frothing at the mouth with your damn elections. Just pick somebody already, or better yet, switch to a parliamentary system. Pick your rep and they'll pick somebody for you. Way less effort, way easier. Every now and then you get a Trudeau, but that's fine. It only lasts a couple years.
And, at least Trudeau looks good.
Oh, of course he looks good. He's JFK Jr. for Canada. He used to be in a pickup.
And I also hear that he's a wife beater or a girl beater because he did elbow that one chick in Parliament.
Oh, right, that thing. Dude, this is the only political thing I want to say this hour here, but the one thing that bothers me is how bad we've fallen. Because I don't know if you guys remember, we had Jean Chrétien in the 90s, and he choked out a reporter once who got in his face, like on live camera. And the funniest part was then the media started getting mad, talking about him assaulting reporters. And his only response was, he was in my way. And I was like, that is awesome. That's probably been the proudest moment in politics for a Canadian ever. And now we have Trudeau where he bumps into a girl and everybody freaks out over that one. And it just makes me sad.
I kind of miss those days in politics where everyone knew that whoever was the leader had a couple of mistresses. And as long as it wasn't too overt with it, nobody gave a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like JFK was banging Russian spies in the Oval Office and no one cared.
That's true. Yeah, as long as he kept the commies at bay with the nukes.
And now it's like Donald Trump tweeted mean words at 3 a.m.
And then do they even care? Like, are they actually invested in this outrage, or are they just really like, I want to find out who figured out the first guy who figured out that outrage sold tickets or ink or whatever people are selling, because that's taken off like wildfire.
Lenny Bruce did that back in the day. And, Alice Cooper did that. And Marilyn Manson did that.
Yeah,
I mean, outrage works because it creates an in-group and an out-group. And you get more support from your in-group because you're the one telling truth to power, well, perceived as. So at this point, virtue signaling, especially with social media, has just become the marketing choice. That's a big problem for this sphere as well, because guys don't necessarily want to do the work. They just want to feel like they're actually participating and getting better. They want to tell people on social media that they're starting to lift, but they don't actually want to lift.
Oh, dude, that reminds me of a post by Last Psychologist. Real men drink Guinness. And I'm trying to remember the quote. It was something that, like, he called it a beta male, doing everything to symbolize being a man without having to put any effort in. It was the awesomest thing compared to like an Indian and a American commercial on Guinness. But yeah, I want to pull it up, but his site's been slow lately. I'm kind of worried we're going to lose that guy's work.
I should probably download it or something. Just do a scrape of it so you can get all the content.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Actually, I'd probably do that after this cast. Ego investments, though. I guess we should probably touch the topic we're actually touching here. I remember starting it and a client actually brought this to me. He's like, what would be a great topic? Because he was having a lot of trouble understanding the whole concept of stepping on your dick and analyzing the footprint. And ego investments, or setting aside your ego to make decisions that are best for you. And it seemed like an awesome topic. I kind of kicked it off when I was talking about vetting, how vetting is a horrible ego-invested way of, I guess, assuring fidelity in a relationship. But there's so much more to it. I mean, you talk about it all the time on your tweets or just in your own dating life. This is your lead in.
I thought you had something more there, but the whole thing with vetting is like, it makes you feel like you're doing something, but it's not really
doing anything.
Well, you haven't done the real Q&A on that process because, like, Illimitable Man dropped a tweet that if a woman likes you, she'll rationalize another 3 inches on your dick.
Mm-hmm.
But men will do the same thing with women, though, because, like, the guy who is vetting, unless he has, like, an objective points system that he's diligently logging, it's not going to be an objective process, because for vetting to have any value, there has to be, at some point, he has to say that, okay, she failed, I need to eject her.
Oh, yeah, I've never heard of anybody tried to vet a girl and it didn't work. Short of her sticking another dick in her.
Even then, I mean, I know a couple of guys who are big on vetting, and that happened, so, like, no names named.
Hey, we're trying to man up smart here. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so the whole thing is, like, even, like, their girl who they're vetting got a train ran on her by the Harlem Globetrotters. And I'm not sure why I keep coming back to them. Probably because they're the only basketball team I can remember off the top of my head. But, and the guy's like, well, she did bang 8 black dudes, plus the official, plus the guy doing the play-by-plays. But she did bake great cupcakes.
Yeah.
And she has a nice ass. So that's pretty much
oh, God, that's the worst. That's the worst part of it is that, yeah, once those guys vet, they attach their ego to it. They never give up. And if something happens that completely goes against what they were vetting, they rationalize it away. And I could just picture Rolo in my head right now talking about how we give women agency when they want it, but then we take it away when we need them not to have it. Like they're either a child or an adult, depending on what we need in the situation. And in that cheating situation, all of a sudden it's not her fault. She's like, dicks just fell on her and things happen. And guys want to believe that because they vetted her. Oh, she's mine. I did this. I did all that work. Rich said, do the work. And I did the work. I made sure she went to the same church as me. Or what did that guy put on my post, the one I was reading there? Her church is just like my church on steroids. I was like, what kind of retarded flex is that? Am I allowed to say that on here without getting... Yeah, whatever. It's French for being late, all right?
Yeah, it means to be held back. That's the actual definition of it. But, you know, with all the cursing I do in my rants, I think we're safe.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it was nice, actually, with those rants. I figured out that getting yellow checkmark doesn't exactly mean the thing gets blacklisted. It just means we can't get advertisements for, like, baby powder and stuff like that.
Well, to be fair, I mean,
which is fine. Those are funny enough. They're worth it.
Like, would we want to have like cupcakes advertised on our shows? I mean, my goal.
I am actually surprised we haven't had that.
Well, a Johnny Walker ad or like a Miller Lite ad would be awesome.
Oh, dude, that's a call out to the class here, or the audience. If you guys find somewhere on Red Morning, you get an ad for a whiskey brand, screenshot it and send it to us. Hashtag it Red Morning. I actually am really looking forward to that first time that happens. We don't have like a raffle or anything like that, but we'll totally give thumbs up and shout outs because that'd be awesome. That or some kind of like really crappy shirt company.
Yeah, that would be. No, but anyway, back to the vetting and the ego investment. It's like guys just get so ego invested in their girls. And, you know, I kind of get where it's happened because once you spend some time, like if you're just doing one night stands, you'll never get ego investment in a girl. But like, unlike some people, I actually like women. So I actually, when I have regular plates, even if it's just for like 3 months, I actually do care about these women on some level.
Yeah, of course.
I don't let them define my life, but I mean, I do care about their tastes and preferences. And
I would pee on them if they were on fire. I'm just saying that right now. You can call me a white knight if you have to. I'll take that one.
Yeah, pretty much. And, you know, I kind of get where you're coming from, but you can always tell when a guy made his necessity into a virtue, or when you have some guy just virtue signaling for his audience. And that's kind of what I dislike the most, because the guys who do the most virtue signaling to their audience are always the guys who are the least able to help them.
That is a really solid point. It's almost as if it's a self pep talk. They don't believe it, but they're trying to convince you. But what they're really doing is trying to convince themselves. And I'll buy that because I've seen that in field reports constantly, where the guy constantly hammers like I was being stoic, I was being calm. Like those are things you want to do in the middle of a fight. I was being stoic, I was being calm. Then I told her to go fuck herself, and I ran out of the house. And I'm like, well, that's not really stoic or calm now, is it? Maybe you shouldn't be calm. Maybe you should be effective.
Well, to me, it's just they're trying to be this ideal. And I kind of hate this idea that there is, because I think a lot of guys have that Chad archetype in their head.
Mm-hmm.
But Chad doesn't exist.
No, God, no.
It's like
Chad exists the same way Stacy exists. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like they want the world to be Mean Girls, where you just have these archetypes of everyone, and everyone is just kind of everyone just embodies their group. And I just think the whole idea of that is, because what happens with it is you get this archetype and you kind of live that archetype, but it's not you, it's not real. And people can tell. It's the whole point why I did that Lex Luger versus Stone Cold Steve Austin thing yesterday.
Oh, yeah, being too perfect.
Well, Stone Cold was just, he got over it, but he was relatable because everyone could see Stone Cold and be like, yeah, I'd love to be in that ring having a beer with Stone Cold. Same thing with, I'm not sure how familiar you are with ECW.
A little bit, not a lot.
But there was a guy on there who went by the Sandman.
Oh, okay. I remember Sandman a little.
But his whole shtick was like he would come to the ring and he would have a kendo stick in one hand. He'd be smoking a cigarette, and he'd have like a 24-pack of Rolling Rock with him, and he'd just be walking through the audience, handing out beers to the crowd, hammering a couple of brews himself on the way down to the ring and everything. And that guy just got over, like, to the point where when his music hit, and they couldn't actually use, I think, the real Enter Sandman. So they used like a adapted version, but the audience would sing the lyrics to Enter Sandman by Metallica while he was pounding beers and smoking on the way to the ring.
I wonder, for copyright purposes, is that something that you can actually get mad over? If the audience is singing it on you? All right, here, I'm going to switch over to gin now. I'm going to grab myself G&T. Before I go, though, I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to wait till I get back. All right, Carl, this is you mind holding the fort for a minute or two?
Yeah, sure, as long as you're not mixing an extremely complicated gin drink that takes 45 minutes.
No, just gin and tonic. Oh, wait, new features. I love this StreamYard. Check this out. Bam!
Oh, they get to see my non-face. I actually do like that one, though. It's just like me with just the guy who's not there even. Yeah, it's exactly, Simon. I mean, Lars will find a way to sue you. I mean, he sued Napster over this dumb stuff, so God knows what he'd do with the ECW. But now the whole thing with it is Lex Luger was really perfect, and that was why he never got over, because people want someone who they can actually imagine failing. People want the guy who they love the underdog story. That's why the Tommy Dreamer Raven thing went so well, because Tommy Dreamer was open about he never wanted to beat Raven because he always viewed wrestling's greatest story being the underdog who almost beat the heel. And people would keep coming in week after week after week just to see him if he got over on the heel that time. So, and that's what I'm getting at with the persona you create for yourself, because to some extent, we all create our own personalities. And it's a reason why I'm a big fan of moving around. Because if you're moving around, you have the chance to reinvent yourself every time. And over time, you'll kind of create yourself in aggregate through all these small changes you're doing. So that's kind of why I think, moving is smart and not be changing your peer group. Like I changed my peer group probably 10 or 20 times over the past 10 years. And just doing that helps you because every time you change your peer group, you're able to change something about yourself without having other people hold you back.
Oh, I can vouch for that too.
Well, Prussia Kid, just one comment here. I do think we need to make Constantinople great again.
On your peer group thing, ego invested in your friends. That one's awesome because I've been nomadic most of my life, kind of like you. I've lived in half the country, from the town I grew up in to my college town to my first working town to the military, 3 different cities on that one. And you're right. Every time you move, I mean, first off, you're forced to build new friends. I'm sure you guys know those guys from high school who have had the same solid group of friends for 20 years. You put them in a desert island surrounded by people, and they're probably going to have a hell of a time making friends. But the thing that I like, and you probably have this same experience, Carl, since you've moved to a new city and had to sarge essentially a few times now, you're pretty good at least getting a good set of activity friends together when you move into a new city or like after a first week, if not some dates. Am I being fair on that?
Well, yeah, because one of the things you have to do is you always need to have like somewhat of a peer group. Like I was never one to having a huge circle of friends and acquaintances. That's just too much fucking work.
Yeah.
Same reason why I think the optimal number of plates is between 3 and 4. Anything more than that, and it's just too much work keeping track of all these girls and all the stuff you've told them and all the plans you have. And my Outlook calendar game is fire. So, I can't do that properly.
I cannot believe you actually used the words Outlook calendar game unironically on a live stream about being a better man. I don't know. I think we're done. I think I need to find God and grow a beard now.
The whole thing with that is I'm a big advocate of time management and planning. And I've had to become that way because like my default thing is I'm a very relaxed guy by default. That's my default setting is pretty much don't give a shit. Do whatever. And I've had to do it because as you get busier and busier, you have to kind of start planning blocks of time out because, okay, you want to hit the gym. You want to spend the necessary time to get some good food in you, not just fast food crap.
Right.
You want to have time to handle your sexual life. You want to have time to spend on your financial life. You're looking at, okay, where do I put my money? How do I tax plan? And that stuff. And you get so many things that you just have to do. That you have to, or are you seeing what I'm seeing? I take it. Yeah, I had to approve a comment in chat.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's the one thing I can't. So are you doing it in the chat in StreamYard or are you doing it from the YouTube chat?
I'm doing it in YouTube chat. I have 2 monitors set up on my podcasting setup. So I keep our stream in one window and I keep the chat and everything else in another window.
Yeah, I normally do. I'm giving StreamYard a good go here to see what it can and can't do. It looks like it can't do moderation for YouTube chat. If one of you guys could do me a solid, send a super chat at least $3,000 so I can test that functionality and the limits here on chat, that'd be great. And I'll let you know if it goes through. Add a question, we'll answer it, I swear. But yeah, it's neat. I love this thing. Just being able to play through these A and B cameras and stuff. Anyways, I'm totally distracted. Guys, I apologize now. I'm so distracted with a new toy that I'm probably going to fudge up and have Carl say back to the topic at least 5 times this stream. So bear with me on this one. What were we just talking about with the ego investment, friends? Oh, your time management. Yeah, being busy, huge time management. It's actually I'd say step 2 and 3 of when we run married guys through dread. is that they have to find hobbies outside of their wife and find better things to do when she's being cunty, basically. And a lot of guys have like, oh my God, I have to come up with like, what do I do? You just tell them like, get a hobby, and they have no idea like, what should my hobby be? It's literally asking you to map their life for them. And I've really got to come up with like a good system of how a guy can discover one, other than just to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, finding hobbies is kind of spaghetti throwing, though, because you kind of, it's one of my big things is figuring out what you like and don't like.
Right.
And usually it's easier to find out what you like by falsification than it is to do it by proof. And by that, I mean, it's easier to find out shit you don't enjoy and eliminating that from your life as opposed to finding things you do enjoy.
I have been saying that for years. Thank God somebody else sees it. It's so much better.
Well, you just have to try shit out because I've done a lot of things because I adopted a policy of, oh yeah, whatever, let's try it a few years back, because I used to be a lot more discerning with what I wouldn't do anything unless I really, really wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just my way of managing my time. But at the same time, by doing that, I kind of limited myself within my comfort zone. So I kind of adopted the, okay, I'll try it once policy. I mean, there are some things accepted, like I'm not going to try pegging or banging a dude. I don't need to try those things to figure out that I probably wouldn't enjoy it. But it's more along the lines of, let's just try some new stuff. Oh, we got $2 from Chesty. That's $1 in your thong and $1 in mine.
Anyways, you were talking about not blowing dudes, because I'm about to give you the alternative right now, because Chesty's just sweet. Thank you, by the way, Corey. All right, it looks like it doesn't actually give super chat, so I kind of have to keep the YouTube channel chat open anyway. All right, that sucks. They were so close. Well, I guess they're still new. Whatever. Yeah, no, try one thing out. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've done a similar thing myself. I guess a lot of guys do who try new things. But at the very least, you can say you don't like it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of those things that a lot of guys are so ego invested in their persona that they don't try things that are outside that comfort zone.
Oh, I know, especially when it's their persona is branded some social media presence. Once you get to a certain size, like they don't do it because it might damage all that work they put into the internet pixels they already have.
And that's why I kind of tend to respect the guys who are open about their failures.
Yeah, well, me too. Like, first off, having them means you've tried something. I'll take that over a guy who's succeeded at never having to fail at anything before.
But I do think it's one of those issues that you see with a lot of guys who get into things like running game. And it's especially big with gammas, because they're the guys who are sitting in a basement somewhere, or in a loft, or in their room at their mom's house, and they're building themselves up as these amazing titans of intellectual achievement. But they never test their ideas or their value against reality, so they never get that real feedback. Then when someone gives them that real feedback, they lash out.
Yeah.
And you can always
goes against the narrative.
Well, you can always tell those guys, because they're the guys that will blow up your mentions for 3 days because you made some offhand joke at their expense.
Blow up 3 days, try 3 months. 3 months with constant memes where they're pretending to be Trump. Probably one of the most irksome things ever.
And also, not to be a dick, but
but
Trump has some success, but he's like a 74-year-old obese man. There are better role models out there. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah. Oh, there's that. But even that, like, you don't get to be Donald Trump. I don't know if people know, like, he's since the 70s, he's been kind of crushing it. And he kind of gets to act like that. Like, you don't, it's, who was it that put this thing out? It was, I want to say Human Sock Puppet, but it might have been one of the other guys from the Red Pill subreddit. It was, you don't get to do what successful people do. And it was the greatest comment, because it was based on those guys that are ego invested in their hobbies, in this case, pot. Yeah, I can smoke pot. I only smoke a little bit. I'm not addicted. I can still function. So when you tell people not to smoke pot because it kills your drive and or stop using alcohol because it's becoming domain dependent, there's always that guy who comes in and argues like, yeah, I make 6 figures drop shipping. I love my women and I can do all this stuff. And every time I see a guy wearing a MAGA hat unapologetically pretending to be Trump, that's all I can think about is like, yeah, Trump he earned his right to be an asshole. You're not there yet. Slow down.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. It's like it's an old Kid Rock song that goes something. It's not cocky if you back it up, and it's kind of you earn your right to be a dick by being very good at something.
Yep.
It's like yeah,
and something other than being a dick, guys. Jeez.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show House.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that doctor. He gets to be a dick because he's the greatest diagnostician in the world.
It's almost a flex, really. Like, I'm so good that I could be a complete jerk and you still won't fire me.
Yeah, well, even like Bob Gallo, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the guy. He was an American. Yes, I don't think he croaked yet.
Congratulations.
He was one of the guys who found the first human retrovirus, HTLV.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I didn't know the name, but I knew the thing.
And he was also very central in researching AIDS early on. But he never got the Nobel Prize in medicine, which went to the Pasteur Institute and a couple of other people, because it was such a giant dick.
You know what that reminds me of? Do you know who Rick Hansen is or Terry Fox?
I've heard of him.
All right, so there's 2 guys, Terry Fox and Rick Hansen. They were paraplegics in the 80s. They were running across Canada as they're like building awareness and building funding and all that stuff. And if I remember correctly, Terry Fox did like 3/4 of it, never finished it. He's been the poster child of it ever since. Rick Hansen actually finished the run, but because he was such a dick, he got like no recognition, and he's been bitter about it for like the last 40 years. And that's exactly what that reminds me of. There's a little Canadian trivia for you guys. Participation. Welcome to the club.
Well, to me, it's just no matter how big you are, there are always some level of consequences. Like Elon Musk is pretty much the Tesla of our day.
Mm-hmm.
And he got some shit from the SEC for that I'm going to take Tesla public for 420 joke.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what did they call that one? Like some kind of insider trading or market spec or whatever. Yeah. It was something bad anyway.
Okay, so Nova Roma dropped us a $1.99 super chat. What drinks do you guys recommend for a good life? I'll let you go first on that one.
Ooh, so I'm going to get pedantic on this. When you say good life, I'm not sure what that means yet. So let's say when you say good life, you're cutting. You're cutting weight. I would say vodka tonic is probably the best one for that. Approved by Gaze and Thought since 1976. Can't go wrong with tonic water club soda, vodka, lime. I'm technically drinking a gin version of that right now. Not because I'm cutting, but because I like the clear liquids. You can always go whiskey. It's got that great symbol of masculinity thing to it because oak is man because men are made out of trees. So you can drink whiskey if you want to be a real man. You can drink gin because it's liquid panty remover and it glows in the dark at the bar. It's a nice peacocking thing. And you can go tequila because usually when you say a story and you say, then we had some tequilas, it makes you sound cooler. I would suggest that. But stay away from the expensive stuff. Stick with the cheap stuff. It tastes way better, and it's way better for you in the morning for your hangover because real men have nasty hangovers. Now, in all seriousness, though, it's just have a preference. Honestly, you can drink a pink drink all the time and have a great life as long as you're unapologetic about it and you like it. Have your umbrella. Wear your shitty shirt. On a personal note, I love gin. I don't know. My dad got me hooked on gin. That was his drink, and it's kind of like a nostalgia thing for me. My best friend, Chris, he's getting me on to whiskeys now, and Carl's kind of feeding that one. So I do kind of like that. But it's more so because you get to tinker. I think that's the part I like about whiskey, and I'm not sure that's what you like, Carl, but Like every brand is got this unique stamp on it, so you get to have like these little pedantic hipster preferences. Well, this one's slightly peatier than an Islay should be, but you know, that's just how I roll. That's my answer to it anyway.
Well, I'm going to do the opposite of you, and I'm going to assume that if you're living the good life, you're not fucking cutting. No one ever referred to, good life and cut in the same sentence. So I'm going to go with, I'm big on whiskey, so I like my peaty Isleys. I'm not quite at Lafroy level. I think those can get a bit, the Lafroy 10 gets a bit too peaty for my taste and a bit raw, but the Lafroy 18, I think it is actually pretty well smoothed out. And the good thing with it has its own natural limit. Like no one can drink a bottle of that shit.
Self-regulating. Hey, question. When you say alcohol smoothed, I always took that to mean the alcohol content. Like, you know how you can get to from 45 to, and once you get to 42, 40%, I tend not to taste the alcohol anymore. Like that burn just goes away. Is that essentially what you're talking about? Or is there another flavor profile that I'm missing?
No, when I say something is smooth, it's kind of an abstract notion, but I mean there are no hard edges to it, and things are kind of sticking together.
Oh, okay. No, I get that. Makes sense. So no overpowering notes on it.
Yeah, and no harsh notes. Like you notice this easier with beer than you do with scotches. But if you get a beer that's really green, like it hasn't doesn't have enough age on it, especially common with big stouts and big porters.
Yeah,
it can have somewhat of a harsh, astringent feel to it because it just hits you too hard. They haven't had time to meld. It's like when you make tomato sauce versus salsa, and I know you love doing your salsa shit. So,
judging by the watch videos, though, I'm like the only one, or the watch counts.
Yeah, so with salsa, you get kind of that raw, fresh flavor, especially with like a salsa fresca. And if you compare that to something like a black mole or Italian marinara sauce or those type of sauces that have had all that time to simmer and meld.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's what I mean when I talk about smoothness. Like if you drink something that's like 140, 150 proof, that's going to burn no matter what.
Yeah, I've had those days. That was my 30th birthday, actually. I had a couple of those. I was working like 2 12-hour shifts. I had like a night shift and then switched over to a day shift, so I had 12 hours off. And my friends threw me a birthday party for my 30th birthday there. And they duct taped a bottle of that to my hand. And I had like a parlor trick where I could drink 151 without puking. Like to me, like vodka, anything under 40% for alcohol, I don't even taste alcohol. And the stuff that's higher, I just have to sip. But what I didn't know is my buddy, like I was just having fun and running my mouth. And every time I'd set my hand down, I eventually like cut the bottle off and he would just start filling it up on me every time I would take a sip. And so I ended up just completely sloshed to the point that I almost took out somebody's China hutch. I called this one guy's wife who hosted the party, like, why are you here? And she got offended. I've actually spent more on flowers for her than I have on my wife. I felt so bad. And I had to be at work the next day. I puked and all I saw was cigarette ash and purple Gatorade. I was like, oh my God, it was the worst day of my life. But, the question I had to follow up on this one is what got you into whiskey? Because I know you're not one of those guys that gets whiskey because men like whiskey, because whiskey and cigars are man.
Well, so both my dad and my grandfather were big. They're not huge, like into whiskey, but that was always kind of their drink of choice was whiskey. So that was one of the first things. Yeah, it was one of the first things I ever stole from my dad's liquor cabinet was some whiskey. And I just kind of got into it because like I had a period because the first bottle I ever bought was like this horrible Canadian whiskey, and I'm
Canadian Club.
No, it's even worse. It's something called Lord
Calvert. Oh, You poor bastard. we
Yeah,
didn't
and
even
I drank.
we didn't even give that away as Christmas gifts on the ranch. That's how bad that was.
Yeah, and the whole thing with that is I just kind of bought that because that was the only one I could afford at that point.
Right.
So I ended up drinking a whole bottle of that when I was like 17. And I couldn't stomach whiskey for like 2 3 years after that. And then I started to get into it again through, kind of the less offensive blendeds. Like you have Chivas Regal as one, and then you have Johnny Walker Black, which is the other one.
Right.
And then from the Johnny Walker, I kind of progressed towards the single malts. But I prefer drinking blended whiskey to this day, like as a drinking whiskey.
Right.
Just because it's easier on your palate.
Yeah, it's easy on the palate. It's consistent. Like you're never going to get a super strong flavor. It's like the fast food of whiskey, I guess. But I don't want to make it sound pejorative. It's just easily drinkable.
It's drinkable, and you don't have to be concerned if you want to throw some Coke in
there. Oh, Coke. I think I meant cocaine. I'm like, hey, fair enough.
Oh no, I actually never did that. Hello, angels.
What the?
We had a super chat.
Damn it! All right, there's the super chat. Oh, oh, I don't know if we're gonna go down that road where it's all of a sudden like giving us tasks to do. I think that's a horrible one. But hey, Nova, hello, angels. I know you didn't ask me to do it, but whatever. Ego investment. I guess we've been talking about booze. We're having a blast. I was thinking ego investment from a relationship level. And from a single level. I guess they're the same.
I think ego investment works on all these things because the whole thing with Miller Lite masculinity is that the ego invested in all these symbols of masculinity instead of, actually. Yeah, Ryan isn't all that drunk. I mean, I might be good on my way. I'm still not sure if I sobered up from last night.
Yeah. And to be fair, this is my first drink. I'm halfway through it right now. I'm not drunk. I'm actually having fun. I don't know about you guys, but I think this one's a blast.
Like yesterday was kind of a funny one because like I don't like going out on Fridays and Saturdays most of the time.
Really?
Usually have plates over on those days, and I do my feeding through Monday through Friday.
Oh, that makes sense. Although you never struck me as like a nightclub guy anyway. I could see you like in pubs, but isn't the pub culture in Europe kind of more of a weekday thing anyway?
No, that was kind of the issue because like I had a plate over yesterday, and I sent her on her way around 11 o'clock. And she wasn't drinking, so I didn't either. So I decided to, I'll just go out. And I ended up going out to a pub and just drunk tweeting from a pub all night.
Dude, that totally makes sense. I can see the tone shift in your tweets when they get a little more biting, a little witty. Your inner Hitchens comes out. Actually, I'll hold that up.
About a 0.6 to 0.8 blood alcohol level, to be completely honest.
I was going to say, I remember you always looked up to wanting to be like a Hitchens 2.0, but there is no like evangelical movement for you to fight. I honestly think this purple pill, manosphere, ego invested marketing thing has become your Hitchens religion. And I am looking forward to how far you're going to take this because it's going to be a blast. It's too bad you don't do debates because I think it would be genuinely entertaining.
Well, the thing is, I have a feeling that if I were to actually engage in debates, like I've done a lot of debating in my day, and like my preference is Oxford style debating.
Mm-hmm.
Because
and for the audience that doesn't know what that means, please fill them in because I definitely know. I want to hear you say it.
I was going to before you interrupted me.
Holy.
Well, what Oxford style debating is you have a premise, and then you have an opening statement from each party. Then you have a rebuttal round, and then you kind of have an audience Q&A at the end. And I like that structure because that's the actual debate, because you make the case for your stance on the proposition. Then the other party gives their introductory statement on their stance.
Mm-hmm.
Then each of you gets one round to rebuttal the points made by the opposing party, and then the audience get to be involved at the end.
That reminds me of parliamentary democracy, where it's all kind of designed to keep people from beefing on each other and just shitting up the space. It's probably why you like it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's the whole point with it. It's why I like it too, because like American style debates, they're more akin to what a roast is. And I have a feeling that if I were to do those debates with some of the purple pill profiteers, that would turn into a roast real fucking quick.
Oh, easily. That's the thing. Yeah, no, yeah, I got no, yeah. Yeah.
I also don't think, I think in order for a debate to take place, like with an actual valuable debate, there has to be a basic respect for your opponent.
Okay.
Because if you don't respect your opponent on some level, or at least their intellectual abilities, then why are you even giving them a platform? There's a reason why Richard Dawkins never did debates with creationists.
Oh, I've heard him talk about that.
And I've used that in DM references with people in this space. It's if you actually debate them, then you're actually conceding that they may have a point. It's like if Dawkins was very clear, there is no debate between evolution and creationism. One is fact, the other is fiction. So why would he give someone that platform and his name to basically perform for an audience? You don't.
It's too bad. Such a smart guy, and then he had to go say hello to a feminist in an elevator and ruin the entire thing. Tisk tisk.
Yeah, feminism ruins everything.
Mm-hmm. If you guys don't know, that's a reference to the atheism plus thing. Only 2,000 kids will know.
Yeah, what was the whole thing? Feminism is not great. How feminism poisons everything.
It totally did. And that's the thing. I remember this. I was like college age in the 2000s. And that was like the most fun thing ever, was watching the Four Horsemen, mostly Hitchens, sitting there and talking this trash. And everybody kind of enjoyed that we were past that age where you have to beat rocks together and pray to the Bronze Age god. We thought, great, time for like a second enlightenment. And that ended up poorly. Puts chicks in charge of it. Well, I guess we get...
Well, the biggest problem is Hitchens died. That would never have happened if Hitchens was still alive.
That is true. I am wondering, because ever since his women aren't funny rant, like I know he would have taken it in a good place, but I've always wondered how it would have played out if he was still here.
Well, it's like the problem, I've said this before, the problem with the four horsemen of atheism is that they had two balls between them, and Hitchens had both of them.
Oh, now we're ego invested in atheism. Damn it. But
yeah, I don't think you can be ego invested in facts.
Yeah, fair point. But that's just it. Most atheists don't know facts anyway. Like when it comes to a lot of scientific concepts, I'm surface level understanding at best. And I'm not a stupid guy. And I know there are stupid guys that are also atheists. And I know for a fact that they are essentially taking this stuff on faith. They're buying the 21 con bathwater. Well, he said he's awesome, so I believe it because I want to be awesome too.
Is that a real product, 21 con bathwater?
Might as well be. Honestly, my favorite thing to do in this space is to come up with catchy turns of phrase that articulate a concept. Like the Sun Hat Gods, I love that one, where I talk about how middle-aged women who have ridden the cock carousel for 20 years and then decide it's time to settle down, put on a summer dress and a sun hat, and all of a sudden they're trad. The Sun Hat Gods cheers me up to no end. Miller Lite Masculinity, that one was yours. Brilliant. And that's the next one I'm going to do there is bathwater. Attaching bathwater to shills or snake oil. Just calling it bathwater.
Yeah, I did like my my reference to certain accounts in this space as the Instagram ass models of Twitter.
Oh, that was another good one. But it's good because it helps. It so eloquently articulates something with a very flippant and almost blue collar like response. So it's very easy to be engaging with it, and people understand and they get in on the joke instantly. I just love it.
Yeah, the thing with it though is those are usually kind of like the kind of comments you make when you're not pissed off, you're annoyed.
Yeah.
And a couple too many, and you're just like, fuck it.
Screw it, and then you end up with a 10-minute rant on YouTube that turns into a regular thing.
Yeah, that was kind of an accident though, because like a lot of this stuff when I do these rants, they're just jokes. Things I pulled in my Twitter feed because I don't want to put it out in tweets. And like this week, it was kind of hard to write because like I was like, what am I supposed to rant about this week? Because no one really. I think I've blocked and muted too many people in the manosphere, so I'm not getting annoyed enough.
Oh, I agree. It's amazing. I think you put me onto that approach, and it's after a while, the only way you get any beef is when people screenshot it and send it to you in DMs.
Yeah, by the way, guys, can you please stop sending those hilarious memes to me in my DMs? I mean,
yeah. Oh, hey, quick shout out to Prussia Kid, by the way, $5 super chat. Here's a question for you, Carl. If a woman calls out a deity when making love, isn't she giving credit to a higher power? I've got a good answer on this, but I like yours. It'll be funnier.
well, she's giving praise to a higher power, but that higher power is you. Kind of reminds me of like when I got my first degree, I have like some really, really like hyper religious family members. And one of them, when I just sent a text like, hey, I just got my degree, I passed my final exam, and they were like, thank Jesus. And I just texted back, yeah, Jesus wasn't up with me studying all fucking night. He had no part in this.
I like that one. Yeah, mine I was thinking, and I was just thinking the trad thing where a lot of guys, they want a nice, good Christian traditional girl. And I am actually surprised they talk about being the leader, being a patriarch, and then talking about the religious conviction with such devotion. Because the thing about traditional women and hypergamy in general, here's my Rolo rant about hypergamy. Ryan talks hypergamy. Hypergamy means girls want the absolute best they can get at any given time. And when you make a girl traditional, she becomes the authority becomes her one thing she looks up to. So she doesn't respect the man. She respects the rules, if that makes sense to you. Has nothing to do with Nova's question, by the way. Yeah. So you get all these girls that, my wifely duty, and that's where starfish sex was invented. I think traditional girls invented starfish sex because they basically turn their head to the side, pray to God, and then open up for the guy so he doesn't, I don't know, whatever guys did in the Bronze Age time when they didn't do it. It's kind of annoying, really, because you hear, and I think this ties into those ego investments. The guy becomes ego invested in Jesus, and then he refuses to acknowledge that his girl is basically alpha widowed by Jesus, but he's trying to pretend like I'm just as good, but it never quite works out that way. And it makes this weird situation where all these little contradictions come through and everybody acts very incongruent. And I don't like it. Your answer really was funnier, by the way. Mine is just a long, drawn out kind of ramble.
Well, to be honest with you, like, who is more alpha than Jesus? The guy literally died by hardwood. like he was literally nailed till the end.
Yeah, fair point. Oh, and hey, Conk, you said, are we saying trad girls as in epiphany girls or as in sheltered church girls? They have very different problems. Yes. I don't have a lot of experience personally with sheltered church girls. I've never been the guy that they go to fool around with. That's always somebody else. And the ones that are actually sheltered to the point that are kind of stunted emotionally, I tend to avoid them like the plague. It has too much of a Chris Hansen feel to it. So I am definitely talking about epiphany stage girls that have rediscovered Jesus. It's like the female equivalent of how a guy goes to prison and then finds Jesus there. Is the girl when she's like 28 and guys don't want to have sex with her anymore. That's when she decides, I think it's time for Jesus.
Yeah, it's like I've asked the questions a couple of times because, like, who finds Jesus the most? A girl who hits the epiphany phase, or a guy who gets convicted and put on death row?
Good question. Leave your answers in the chat. I feel bad too about this because I love Tanner, hardcore Mormon, very devout. I really like the guy. He's an awesome guy. Honestly, if all religious people were like him, I probably wouldn't be ranting like this. But I know it doesn't hurt his feelings, he doesn't care, but it just kind of, I feel bad.
Well, the thing is, I like Tanner, but the reason I like Tanner has nothing to do, like, the fact that he's deeply religious is like the fifth thing that's wrong with him. But the thing I really like, the thing I really like about Tanner is the fact that he actually puts his feet to the floor. He didn't know how to fight, so he went and did a boxing match.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to do construction, so he started doing some construction stuff. He's actually one of the guys who are actually he's acting out his convictions.
Yeah, he's doing the work. Honestly, he's probably the most red pill guy I can think of in this space. In that sense. Like, he has no fear when it comes to this stuff.
And that's what I like about him. He actually lives what he preaches.
Have you seen his newest thing?
No, what was the newest thing?
He just did a call-out thread for the Navy or the Marine challenge. Chin-ups, sit-ups, and three-mile run. So he posted on there. I'm looking into doing that. I'm probably going to fail at it miserably, though, because the arthritis in my hand, I basically have to wear hooks if I can do for any chin-ups. And I'm very lower body heavy, so my chin-ups suck. And I keep pulling my calf on runs lately, so my run's going to suck. But I do like that. I am going to put in a thing. I don't know if he wants like video evidence or what, but so we'll see.
Yeah, anyway, I just like the fact that he lives his convictions, so that's why I never give the guy shit.
Mm-hmm.
I only give people shit. Like, as a general rule, I hate fucking hypocrites.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I hate fakery and I hate hypocrites. So those are usually the guys I call out. Like, I'm not going to be. I'm not going to call out a guy who's I think is genuine. So that's kind of my thing with it. It's if you're genuinely trying to do something, I won't give you shit about it. If you're just outrage marketing or selling bathwater or catering to the sun hat gods with your Miller Lite masculinity to get some cred and to get some juice, fuck you.
I think being influenced by you and having some insight into this stuff has been the greatest boon ever. I wholeheartedly agree with this 100%. And this is, this is exactly what you were talking about when you said about trying new things and taking like a more deconstructive process. Find out what you don't want. I love that because when it comes to ego investments, the easiest way to bypass that is to essentially just work on things you don't want. I don't like when this happens to me. Fix that. I don't like this. Fix that. You can't have ego on a negative thing, so you're always able to work past it. And I think this is like another facet of it when you're talking about the guys who are hypocrites, who are just outrage brokering for marketing and for sales. The whole thing is like a complete, it's a big manosphere top level version of it. I don't like these guys in this space crapping it up and really getting in the way of guys who just want to get their dick wet and have a nice, fulfilling life. So fuck you. Yeah.
That's good, man. We both dropped a couple F-bombs, so...
I gave up. This one, honestly... Oh, yes. Okay, so for the audience here, I had this thing for the longest time on these where I've tried to keep it the green check monetized. Not because of money, because... No offense, these things pay absolutely nothing. The problem is that I know YouTube really wants to make revenue. So when a video is advertiser friendly, my assumption is that the algorithm pushes it further so it gets better reach. We can reach more people, and that's wonderful. So that's been my whole reason to try and meet that. But the times when it goes limited are so few and far. Like it makes no sense. It's very inconsistent. Sometimes we won't swear at all. It'll flag us. I'll have to do ask them for a review, and the review approves it. Sometimes, like Quincy's bare ass stayed green. Meanwhile, one of us threw an F-bomb 30 minutes into a 2-hour cast, and it went yellow. So at this point, fuck. If they're not going to give me any consistent rules, I might as well just own it.
Yeah, if anything, that Quincy bare ass shit should have just basically turned your whole stream into like a Japanese porn video.
Yeah,
everything would have been pixelated.
I love how we're still busting his balls on that too.
And the worst thing about that is his excuse was, well, I didn't know you guys were bringing me on hot. And I was like, so that means you were just going to flash me and Rian.
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel any better.
No, exactly.
All right. I think this might be a drinking cast. If you don't mind, I'm going to go pour myself another one, and I'm going to come back in a second. Do you mind carrying on?
Yeah, I'll find something to rant about. So this is probably the best time for you guys to throw shit in the chat if you have any questions so I can answer them. Chin up. I have a voice modulator running, so it may be a little bit garbled based on that or the VPN. I'm not sure, but we've had some issues with YouTube's encoding previously. And, drinking casts are always the best cast because then when we get about an hour and a half in and we get a good buzz on, that's when we start talking shit. And that's when we usually get called out for drinking on the podcast and giving men advice. Oh, best Tinder opener can. I like my distance opener. It's whenever a girl is more than 2 miles away, you tell her that, 5 miles is a bit of a trek for a first date, but I am worth it. Yes, Richard, I think gamma males are a real thing. I don't think it's so much the socio-sexual hierarchy as it is a manifestation of narcissism combined with an extreme entitlement complex. Like what signifies gamma to me are men who they've never tested themselves and gotten real feedback on their value. So what they do is they build this big thing in their head where they're the greatest thing ever, and any feedback they get, they disqualify either based on a rationalization or ignorance or something like that. So Vox Day pointed out, like, these are the guys, they'll offend you in your comment section. And then once you ban them, they'll email you and say, hey, I was just trying to get your attention. Why are you such a coward that you won't even engage in a debate with me? So they're just trying to steal clout. Let's see. What are the other ones? Yes, and Fuego. I could do I'll look up if I can find the Jigsaw voice.
Oh, that'd be fun. Oh, speaking of voices, I've been trying to work on my speaking voice so these things don't sound quite so nasally and bad. And I think I accidentally came up with an Ivan impression.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where he is, but he has his GPS coordinates tattooed onto his face, so whatever. Let me see if I can do this one. I should have practiced first. The thing about nobility is we all must. I don't know, I can't even think of like churl shit to say. I really can't. But I found out what he does is because of his hearing problem. He doesn't know how the air sounds, so he puts his tongue way in the back of his mouth. And then he sits extremely uptight. I don't know if that's any good, and I know.
Yeah, that actually does sound like him the one time I hear him speak.
Yeah, and I feel bad because like I'm not making fun of him for being deaf, and I know that's exactly where he would take it. For me, I just find it's a funny character voice. I should do animation.
To be honest, man, I'll be honest, I didn't watch any 21 Con speeches.
I don't blame you. Like the whole thing.
I watched the thumbnail on yours just to give you shit that you were looking a bit chubby on that first one.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. That was like 20 pounds ago. Or no, 10 pounds ago, but a lot of booze in the face on that one. But I don't blame you. Like, the speeches weren't the greatest part of the thing. Like, I worked hard on mine, and I've kind of released it in writing. I'll probably do another video on it too. It's essentially what we talk about here. Like, your rants, extend it to about 50 minutes. And that was one of my speeches. What is absolutely wrong with masculinity? What can you remove from it? What can you deconstruct? And then to get a guy to a point that, what am I left with? That was the key to it. My first one was just explaining the 12 steps of dread, but instead of making it a stupid listicle, the 12 ways to be alpha, I just used it as a story talking about Chad and Beta Billy and how they both ended up in the same place and then how they go out of it. But yeah, I wouldn't bother listening to it. That stuff was early. It wasn't very well delivered. And to be honest, you've been through that path yourself. I really don't think you need to hear it again. That's for the guys who are at that lower point.
Well, I just think it's important not to get too ego invested in your own manosphere persona, because we all kind of do one.
Mm-hmm. A little bit, yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, it's a degree thing. Like, I don't drink quite as much as I give the impression that I do.
I actually am kind of offended by that. I always thought of you as a functioning alcoholic. Now you hurt my feelings.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, it was something I remember you brought up early where when we first started doing these things, we kind of gave each other a little tidbit of information about each other because you wanted to avoid that whole where we start beef with each other, but then, oh, that was just my persona. That wasn't me. And I think that was brilliant, by the way. And if you guys have friends at home you do this with, I would say do that too. Don't put your cards on if you're going to devote yourself to having friends doing that stuff, put your cards on the table. At that point, at least you guys can be honest. So if you know there's a beef, you never have to worry if it's actual or if it's not real. None of this macro level stuff we're dealing with on the branding side of things will ever trickle down to your personal life if you just be honest with your intentions as opposed to playing a part. But yeah, that's a kudos for you, Carl. It was a really, really smart thing you did.
Well, I just think it's easier to deal with guys if you have like a basic level understanding of, like, I do think of Carl as a persona of sorts. It's sort of my heel character. But at the same time, though, it's close enough to my real personality that I'm not going to beef with someone over nothing. Like, if I call someone out or if I say something about someone, there's a certain there's a reason why I'm doing it, and it's not because they offended my persona or me personally.
True.
I've dealt with that enough in corporate and various other things that I don't take myself all that seriously. It's one of the reasons why one of my things lately has been about perfection is not a thing, because we get this, and it's fucking retarded, to be honest with you. It's like you saw that on that site that shall not be named because it's fucking Ebola spouting spurgs.
Yeah.
And you had that whole thing where, like, post your physique. I'm trying to debate you on red pill principles. Post your physique. It's like, why does that matter? Why is your physique so intrinsically linked with the value of your thinking?
Symbols. It's a more useful symbol than whiskey and leather, but it's still a symbol.
Yeah, and it's like one of my biggest things that annoy me about this soyosphere is this whole idea, like, if you don't have a six-pack, 6 figures, and 6 feet, you're fucked. Those are things girls put on their Tinder profiles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a filtering mechanism.
And I don't think most guys feel the need to be a millionaire.
Most guys want it.
Most guys just want to make a decent income and get out of the commute.
Or most guys want that so they can flex in front of people so people tell them how great they are. I don't even think it's about the money. I think it's about the prestige.
Yeah, maybe. And then you have this whole idea that perfection is not attainable for any of us. and none of your idols are perfect. And the closer your idol is to a cult leader, the closer to perfection his own self-image will be. And I see a lot of Jim Joneses and a couple of Marshall Applegates in the manosphere.
I was thinking Doe, but Doe was the Heaven's Gate guy, wasn't he?
No, Marshall Applewhite.
Oh, that was his real name?
Yeah.
But even he had a persona.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I 100% agree. It's this weird, it's ego. It's all ego. It's instead of actually achieving the things you want to achieve, it's guys who want people to see them in a positive light because they think that's the way to get there. And it's tragic because it's so transparent. The only people it works on are those who are equally as ego invested in their online flexing. But you and I talked about this.
Yeah, it was one of the things that someone told me and that I fully agreed with, that a lot of this stuff that was going on for a while there are just basically a bunch of fake personas boosting each other.
Except for a lot of them didn't get boosting. I laughed on that when Bruno tried doing the wrestling references. And I know, whatever, he's bigger than me, so I'm still small enough I can tell people shit about boosting him, but he started using wrestling references to refer to some nonsense, and I just kind of laughed. Like, first off, don't be stealing our rants when we're drunk, because that's not the material you want to steal from. That's our B-reel.
I know. I kind of think of that as our A-reel. I think of what we talk about when we're sober as kind of our B-reel.
Fair enough. But then that was the other.
Our watch counts goes up. Our watch counts and likes. And by the way, guys, smash the like button. We have 100 guys who haven't done anything yet, and we're still 6 downvotes short. We usually get 7.
If you even lift, hit the upvote button. If you want to have people think you lift and you don't lift, still hit the upvote button. If you're one of those 8 people that have been following us since the start and probably live in Florida right now, feel free to hit the downvote button. It's nice to know you're still watching. You can't pick and choose your fans.
No, it's. I almost tweeted that yesterday, and I still might later tonight, depending on how many beers I pound during the Rule Zero broadcast. But I almost posted, like, if you're constantly hating on me and you're stealing my content, then bitch, you're a fan.
I like that one. Oh,
and
but
the worst thing is, one of my plates had a birthday like 3 weeks ago.
Ooh, happy birthday.
So I decided to indulge her, and she wanted to watch Mean Girls with me. Because it's like one of her favorite movies, and I've never seen it.
I've never seen it myself, so is it any good?
Yes. Well, it has a lot of good memes in it, and the worst part of the whole thing is now all I want to do is post Mean Girls memes about the manosphere because it's so reminiscent.
I like that. Oh, but that was the second point of the thing too, with the wrestling references. Like, first off, you're stealing our drunken material. That's probably not the best if you're trying to be Gandalf the Grey. But the second point is, none of us had like Rolo, you, me, Rich. None of us had outrage brokering as our marketing play. So we don't really play it. We're not very good at it, but we seem to have won anyway. So you can't get mad that you tried. You basically started playing the game with guys who weren't even trying to play the game. The guys kind of stood on the field and kicked the ball a little bit and then roundly won. And it's way too late in the game for you to be crying foul. Way too late. Yeah, way too late. The meta stuff, and actually, you know what? Back to seriousness, and I'm bouncing back and forth here, but the meta stuff, it's a lot of fun. It's very engaging, and I know it's important in order to build a larger manosphere audience. Like a lot of guys who want to build their life up, a lot of guys who are maybe 80% of the way there where they want to be, that extra 20%. Just getting your name out there is going to be important. The thing I don't like about the meta stuff is it makes we're going to turn into the, hey guys, what about airplane food type of comedian? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of get that because, to be honest with you, like, I don't need effort to come up with a bunch of this material. I'm given it. Like, it's like you're going up and you're going to slam dunk, and someone puts a fucking trampoline in front of the basket.
Oh, yeah, it's a no-brainer.
It's like, and a lot of it just, I'm not sure if it's done on purpose or if it's just a complete and utter lack of self-awareness. Because when you have like a guy who does OPSEC courses and titles himself as a ninja and he doxes a location twice.
I know, dude, I've been trained in this stuff and it just makes me cringe. I'm like, how did you even think to call yourself this stuff? Like, what were you thinking? Whoever gave you whatever certification you're claiming to have, you should go and get your money back.
Yeah, and that guy should probably be disowned or disbarred or, disabled or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what dis he should get, but I mean...
the trifecta of disses.
And, well, the thing for me is, like, and this is a credit to Mr. Cooper, because he had a very valid point. Like, when he said, would he change lives, what he's really saying is, look at what they're living. And, like, if I'm hawking shit online when I'm 60 years old, please fucking shoot me.
No, that one was awesome. Because and here's my don't eat paint warning. A lot of guys seem to think that means literally, would I trade places with that guy? That's not what Rich said. What Rich is saying is, yeah, is he aspirational to the average person? And if the answer is no, then having his aspirations resonate with you is probably a bad idea. And he's 100% agreed. But it's the same reason why I use consulting and I don't say coaching and I don't say, what's the other stupid word that fucking retards use when they want to talk about how they help people other than coaching? Counseling?
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I hate those ones because consulting is a very specific term and I really like it. And you've dealt with enough of like Deloitte, PwC and that to know. When you do consulting, you do not guarantee anything. You don't commit to any outcome. You basically say, here is the information that is the most likely to get you to your goal. And you lay out your expectation management. This is not a pancetta? What's that pedantic word you use for like something that solves all your problems?
Panacea.
That's the one. Panacea. This is not the panacea. You can't hold me responsible if you apply this badly or if something outside of whatever our assumptions were is true. I really like that because it puts the responsibility where it's supposed to be, and that's on the guy who's getting the consulting, on the guy who's has the problems and who's paying money or is like engaging these channels to see what they want. And the problem I have with a lot of people who say they're coaches and counselors is that they're inferring that they can take responsibility for this for you. And it's very seductive. Honestly, I think the worst thing that I ever did, and this is totally meta, guys, I hope you don't mind. We were supposed to be talking about ego investments here, but we're talking about like business models and shit. So apologies now.
I think a lot of this stuff is ego investments because a lot of these guys, they get ego invested in their coach doing the work for them. And a lot of the time, the coach isn't even qualified to do so. Like, if you want consulting on how to get into and maintain a long-term relationship, is your ideal advisor really a 40-year-old single woman with no kids who have no track record of being able to maintain a long-term relationship?
Hypothetically speaking, hell no.
And, if you want to make a ton of money or if you want to learn how to build a sustainable business model, you probably want to talk to someone who's built a sustainable business model a time or two or has some form of credential that gives them that, like a CPA or a licensed financial advisor or something.
Yeah, or at the very least, enough customer retention that they don't have to deal with $50,000 worth of chargebacks on an event, hypothetically speaking.
Yeah, so that's just kind of my stance on it, is that you have, and this is why I had it in the last rant, like, fuck vetting your wife, vet your advisors.
Smart plan. It's a smart plan.
It's like if the guy who's telling you to vet your wife did a shit job of vetting his, is he really the guy you want to listen to, or do you want to listen to a guy who actually did a good job and can show you that he did a good job with his vetting? And a lot of the time, and this is why I think you get so beefier, because a lot of the times the audience gets ego invested with a specific persona, and they defend that persona tooth and nail.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
once
100%.
And the guy who has the persona is also defending it because it's his income. It's how he makes his money. It's how he feeds his family, pays his bills, whatever.
Yeah, that's how he feeds his cats, buys his Zelda posters. Yeah.
So that's going to be very important to him. So, of course, they're going to attack you with tooth and nail if you try and threaten that.
By the way, that's the funny thing on this. We're kind of like an anti-brand as a brand. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I swear to God, like 60%, 60 to 70% of our brand building activities are basically telling people we're not a brand, actively doing the opposite of what brands are supposed to do to build customer loyalty. I find it, and you can almost tell that we're 90s kids because that's a very 90s grunge mentality of like try hard being a pejorative, that entire thing there. And I'm surprised it actually works. I can't remember who said it. Was it you? Or no, somebody else was saying that. Oh no, it was you. It was from when you started, when you were talking about when you had your first like 10,000 subscribers on Twitter and mine there, is that we have like a very loyal core group, which I think is good because we don't actually want or ask for their loyalty, and we actively like work at making them not loyal, which I think works. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just kind of a brain fart. Well, I really shouldn't have had that second gin and tonic.
Well, it's one of those things I got advised to by IM when I first started out, was just like focus on that core group, just do you, and don't pander. Because if you pander, you get people like Lattimore likes to say it with his thing, you know, come for the wisdom, stay for the crack jokes.
Yeah.
And with Ed, it's like if you're not going to be willing to put up with him making jokes about crack and coffee, you don't get the wisdom either. He doesn't want you to follow him. And I'm the same way. Like if you take massive offense to me shit posting on Twitter, I don't really want you to follow me. And it's kind of the liberty of not having this as my main source of income. So I don't actually have to care. Like I would still be tweeting at 3 a.m. if I had 10 followers, or like I was much worse when I had like 200 followers and thought I was a big account.
I remember those days. Those were awesome. Oh, it's the same thing though. Honestly, this is my main income now. For those who don't know, I got laid off on one job I was at, which I was essentially assuming it was going to be a 2-year contract, but it ended up being about a year, and then laid off because of some SOX things. That part wasn't important, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this one a try. I hate, like you said, I hate the commute. I don't need a lot of money, and the Manosphere does not pay well. I'll let you know right now. But it pays good enough. But I don't think you have to pander or do all those things you do, even if it is your main source of income. I'm honestly moving forward as if that was the case. Like if I want to say cunt on the air, or if I want to call something out that I think is retarded, I still will do it, and I think it can still work. Now, if I'm wrong, I don't mind trailblazing this stuff. It was the same way. Actually, here I'm doing the Rolo thing. I hope you don't mind, Carl, where I don't do periods or commas, and I just tell like stories about onions on our belts. But when I left the military, it was literally like they gave me that investigation that ended up going nowhere. It was a big waste of time, but everybody kind of built their military brand off of it. And I decided, you know what? It's not worth it. So I left. And I can get into the reasons, but that's not important to the story. Once I left, I basically thought, okay, so when I leave, I need to make sure my things are in order. I need to have like something nice and corporate, move to a nice city, all that stuff. Move to Toronto, corporate job, well paid, 6 figures, all that good stuff. And here's what happened next. And this is the part that makes me laugh. 5 of my friends left the military within 2 years. And every single one of them has moved on to bigger and better things. I got a friend, I just talked to him yesterday. He's essentially he's going to be part of an international think tank that's working out of like Northern Europe right now. And it's not even NATO. It's like a different international think tank that's trying to compete with NATO. And it's the coolest stuff ever. And all it took was one of us as the core group of friends, like you were saying, the peer group, to take a risk on something and just say, fuck it, I'll give it a shot. And everybody else started going through there. And I thought that was awesome because he's, as far as the friends in my life has been, he's my shipwife. Chris, awesome guy. Shout out. I know he leaves these on in the background while he's cleaning his house to listen to, but sometimes just being able to say screw that conventional wisdom and do things is the way you're going to change things, just to give the people the confidence and they can. So I would say you keep shit posting, you keep treating this as your secondary revenue, because I think that's the best way we're going to move past that model of guys who treat this as a brand and are trying their best to be Mike Cernovich 2.0 and instead become guys that are Carl or Rollo, like real people doing real things, talking about real problems and being outside of that stupid branding, pandering, marketing bubble. There's my pep talk for the day. You can quote that shit.
Well, I was going to say here that like my most impression tweet in the last 24 hours was girl, toxic masculinity is evil. We need to eradicate it. Same girl, choke me and call me your whore daddy.
I love that one. That's so true too. You wouldn't believe, actually, you would believe because you've seen it too. How many times? And if you guys don't know, when you see these Twitter guys and they outdo the outrage thing and feminists tell them to go fuck themselves, you would not believe how often there's somebody in the DMs afterwards, usually one of those girls, playing very, very nice. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And I think a lot of the time it's
exactly the same thing we were talking about before, where guys aren't really mad, but they're posturing at being mad, but then they slide into your DM saying how they like you anyway.
Yeah, and that kind of bothers me because, like, I like watching wrestling. I don't like being in wrestling. Like, I'm not going to have, like, a heel-face beef with some douche on Twitter just to get views. I can get views without doing that. If I want to get views, I'll just tweet out some aspirational quote with a picture attached, and I'll have a couple of hundred retweets. Or, do something off the New Age bullshit generator, and all the high IQ people in my feed will be like, "Oh my god, I love it when Carl tweets high IQ," and it's like, Jesus Christ, you're like.
I'm not too proud to say I do that.
It's like a lot. Some of these high IQ guys are like, I don't know. They're like chicks with E=MC² yoga mats.
Yeah, they're the equivalent of the girl you tell that boiling water is a good thing. But you know what? I don't get mad at it. I know you kind of get miffed at it. You don't like it. I enjoy it. It kind of lets me know the what's that? Not the Schadenfreude. It's another German word. It basically describes like it's all just an act. It's like the Plato's cave thing. They don't really believe what they say. And that's kind of what caught me out. When this first happened, that's when I realized this whole war on feminism thing is complete bullshit. Even the feminists don't believe in feminism. It's not a strategy. It's a tactic. And I stole that line from Whisper.
It's a shit test.
It's a nationwide shit test that most men are failing. And it makes me laugh. So, and I think if guys are smart and they're switched on, and if I know our audiences, I know they are because I've seen examples of before. You guys are the most switched on audience ever. Here's my Trump line: switched on, the most switched on, switched. But they kind of see these things and they'll see that it's the macro equivalent of a girl's Tinder profile saying that I'm not here for hookups and I want a real boyfriend. You know what I mean with that?
Yeah, it's essentially a defense in case one of her father's friends or one of her male friends come across her Tinder profile. Yeah,
and the only person that follows that literally is the kind of person that she didn't want anyway. It's the most remarkable filtering tool. And I think if these guys in the audience here, the single guys, even the married guys, if you just stop taking the stuff literally or seriously, and then just start acting in the ways that you want, like, for example, a single guy, you want to sleep with a girl. If you're going on a date, it's basically to do a bunch of bullshit to sleep with a girl. If you walk in knowing that she's okay with that and that's why she signed in and all the rest is just theater, I think you'd be remarkably better off than the guy who's spending an inordinate amount of time coming up with these random convoluted schemes to get them there. Like, you don't need the dream opener. All you need is to just understand what's going on and then playing the game anyway, but not being concerned about how the outcome is because you know how it's going to end. I'm going to make another drink, Carl. It's your turn for a rant.
Yeah, it's not my thing with it is just, it's about just being honest, because a lot of the times, if you're just honest and direct, girls respect that. What girls don't respect are the kind of guy who is really looking for a hookup, but he's not going to say it. He's not willing to actually put himself out there. And girls are just as prone to hookups as guys are. I mean, Jesus, I mean, you have girls that have like their slut period where they rack up a notch count of 50 and then they spend the rest of their 20s justifying why that was the right thing to do. And a lot of the time, and I tweeted something that if you're using female tactics like guilt, you're using shame, and etc., then you're essentially acting like a girl. And a lot of these major personal brand guys are acting like girls. They're using female tactics. It's shame, it's guilt, it's outrage brokering, it's the whole you can't sit with us mean girls shit, it's the burn book. And why are you bothering with that stuff? If you're direct, honest, and open with what you want, and the girl says, I'm not into that, well, okay, you find a new girl. Then if you feel like you have to adapt yourself to get the girl, then your ego invested in getting that one girl. And that's like this curse of death. You had this issue with guys who are trying to be a girl's friend instead of just being open about the fact that they want to be their boyfriend. You have guys who are trying to kind of weasel their way into it. And I think Richard Dawkins or God Sod referred to it as the sneaky fucker strategy. And it's essentially guys who are lying about their intentions to get what they want. So you have the guy doing his personal brand who's telling you that, hey, I just want to help men out. I want to help you become better. I'm doing great, and I just want other guys to do great.
Be like me, it worked for me.
Well, pay me $500 and I'll tell you to be great. Well, if you really wanted to help men and that was your main intention, you would give your content away for free or at a cost that's affordable to a lot of guys. But if you're looking to make money as your primary objective, and if you help men, well, that's a benefit, but it's not your main motivation, then charging a guy $500 makes sense because then you're making great revenues. And I think it's always good to look at the incentives people have and how they're acting. Like, if someone is constantly insulting their audience, then that probably means they don't like their audience very much. If someone is constantly pandering to their audience, that means they're extremely attached to building that as big as possible. If they're constantly shilling shit at their audience and not giving much, if anything, for free, they're probably trying to monetize their audience. So always look at the medium is the message, even when it comes to men. And, I told Rolo this in a DM not too long ago that, Rolo's been red-pilled about women for a long time, and I'm glad he's finally getting red-pilled about men.
Oh, yeah. I've been laughing my ass off on those last, 2 months of revelations from him. 14 years, he's really good at the SMP. Never learned about how bad men actually were.
And the thing is, I get it. Like, the guys who come here, we're basically like Florence Nightingale of this space. I mean, guys come to us when they've taken a cannon to the balls, and we just need to see if we can save that one testicle. And, I get that. So, we're going to get some really switched on guys who were just that show the pickup artist is the best illustration ever on that. Because you had everything on that show. Like, you had the hot guy with a horrible haircut and, problematic glasses who just needed to get a decent haircut, stop dressing like he's 14 and get some contacts. And then you had like the train wrecks, like the fat autistic guy who just, he had to lose like 200 pounds before he could ever build attraction. And then he had to learn not to, you know, call girls cunts to their face during a pickup scenario with no hints. That's only acceptable if you're opening Australian girls.
Vouch. Facts.
Like Australian girls, the what's up cunt line is brilliant. Maybe not in Australia. I've never tried it there. But if you meet an Australian girl who's traveling, that's a great opener for her.
Dude, I've done that in Florida. It is the greatest opening ever. Not only does it approach her and it makes her very friendly and feel at home, but you basically shock every guy around and you essentially, it's the best AMOG I've ever had. Because Americans treat that word as if it's kryptonite. But did you ever watch Keys to the VIP? You might not have. That was the Canadian version of that.
Yeah, I don't watch Canadian stuff.
It was actually, you know what? I think it was a better show. It was, they had 5 pickup artists, different archetypes, like the creative guy, the athlete, all those different ones. Peaches was my favorite on that one. And then it was like a game show format. So you had 3 different guys, and they would like apply to be on the show. They'd give their resumes on a video thing, and they would send them out to the bar. And it's like, all right, you're going to do this, this, and this. You're going to hit on a girl saying you have a toe sucking fetish. You're going to get a phone number from a girl with saying less than 100 words or some goofy little things like this. Now, all the guys were like somewhat well off. And so they treated it like a game. And that's the part I loved about it. It's okay. You're 6 out of 10 attractive. You're going to go out there and do this ridiculous thing that shouldn't work. And if you can pull it off, you win. It's one of those things where you don't win anything except for like prestige, but then the 5 like really good pickup artists would break down what he did, why it worked, and why it was cool. I really enjoyed it because it wasn't that American style television where it's, like you said, those archetypes that are 11 out of 10 versions of the thing. The guy needs to lose 200 pounds. In this case, it would be the average guy. You need to lose 15 pounds, or you got to kit your Guido hair. It's always like the one thing they're missing to be a normal average guy. And then to put them in situations where they basically had to step up their game to come out ahead. And I enjoyed it so much more.
Well, I think a lot of the time you can kind of work that to your advantage, because if you do something completely ridiculous, then you kind of get past that one. It's like the game I used to play with the guys back in the day where the goal was to get the most epic shot down of the day.
Yeah.
And the guy who got the most epic shot, got shot down in the most epic fashion, didn't pay for his drinks that night. At that point, guys were actually going out there and they were trying desperately to get shot down. So they'd be getting bottle service on one hand and then going up to a girl like, hey, you know, you have a really fat ass.
You know what I love about those games? After a while, it becomes harder and harder to get shot down because you walk with so much confidence and approach like this.
Yeah, it's like if you don't care, you get most. It's like I had this discussion with a plate of mine because, like, you know how it is with corporate. Like the further up in corporate you go, the less stuff you actually have to pay for.
Oh God, yeah.
So I had this discussion with a plate of mine who's working like a standard, like low level, entry level job. And I was just talking with her about this. And I was just telling her, well, you know, I have my internet and my phone's included in my job. And, you know, there's this and this. And I was just going through all the benefits of my job. And she's like, why? They pay you a ton of money anyway. Why do you need to get all this for free? And it's like, and the best thing I can do is like a Snoop Dogg reference, because Snoop at one point, there was I'm not sure what the show was, but he flew from LA to New York.
Right.
And when he got into his hotel room, there were like a ton of new shoes, a ton of new clothes, a ton of stuff there from companies. Because if they get Snoop wearing one of their shoes or they get Snoop to wear their gear, that's great marketing for them.
Right.
And it's the same thing with the higher levels you get into. At some point, you're just so confident because you don't care about being shot down that you can tell a girl anything.
I like that. Yeah, that's literally why you've made it. Although it's funny, I always turn down the phones and the internet service. I hated having those tied to a specific job, but it was nice to have them offered.
Yeah, the way I did it is I just hand them the bill.
Oh, fair enough. I guess if that works too. Yeah, it blew my mind when I first saw it. I didn't know that was a thing. And then it started happening. Like it was just simple stuff. Like they'd take us out for wine for lunch. And then I would bring up my extensive wine knowledge, which I essentially knew the word butter and Chardonnay. And I basically blew the room out.
Well, it's one of those funny things. Once you get up there, like you see that, posting, your 3-course meal on Instagram every Sunday is not that impressive.
Oh, no, not at all. Especially, do you notice the guys who post it never post good 3-course meals? It's always like the very generic, the stuff like your grandfather would have eaten. Like, here's my steak and Caesar salad. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but they don't do that anymore. Nowadays, they have to get extra pretentious. If you don't have gold leaf, are you really a man?
Yeah, it's like, here is my starter. It's a shrimp cocktail. Oh, that was cool if you were on a cruise in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an awesome warning as to why guys shouldn't flex anyway, because if you're trying to flex something that's higher than where you are, I guarantee you're screwing up some nuances about it that everybody who is up there can absolutely see how fake you are. I'll use the military example. Everybody knows about stolen valor. And we had a guy in Canada Day did that, or Remembrance Day, pretended to be airborne regiment, but his cap badge was off kilt. His medals were weird. Not to mention the airborne got disbanded in like the 90s. So if the guy actually was airborne, he was like a 6-year-old in the thing. So it was just ridiculous. So don't flex. Don't flex because it's so obvious to anybody. You're just asking to be called out. And the only person it's going to work on is the kind of person who also doesn't know what it is. And the kind of person who doesn't know what it is probably won't treat it as very important anyway. So your flex is literally wasting time. You're just going to be a fucking clown.
Yeah, it's like myself and Corey had this discussion about a certain flexer on Twitter. And Corey and myself are both in professions where we bill by the hour.
Mm-hmm.
And we know roughly what billable rates you need to get a certain level of income.
Right.
And, the thing is, it's not hard to flex about that realistically, because like if you run a one-man shop and you have a full-time thing, you can do 100, 150, maybe even 200K a year with the right credentials. Sometimes you can do even more, but it's not going to be something that a 20-year-old can pull off. It's going to be like the guy who's been in a profession for like 10, 15 years and has a track record and a good network of connections.
Right.
Because getting into an assignment is going to require, some selling, some marketing, some degree of contracting. That's always going to eat up some of those hours, and you can't really bill a guy for billing him. So you kind of tell that flex immediately. And the workout flexes are kind of obvious too. It's like the guy who's like, I bench 250. And they have no idea what 250 looks like.
Yeah, especially if they're one of those lanky builds that have like horrible insertion points. They look like they're a professional squash player. I'm like, you don't bench shit. Trust me, even if you wanted to, your arms wouldn't handle it. I want a guy who's 250 pounds with T-Rex arms telling me he benches 250 plus. Then I'll buy it easily. Actually, I guess that's an extreme example. Let's say 350.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things you can kind of tell if you have some discernment to it. It's like I love it when guys try to flex with like beer or wine or liquor knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's your thing.
And it's always one of those funny aspects of like, oh, I can tell that this beer was made with this and this hop. Oh, how can you tell? Well, it has a really piney and / resinous flavor. Well, that could be Simcoe, sure. That could also be, it's not going to be Cascade because Cascade is a lot more floral as a hop, but it could possibly be a Chinook. So you have like 4 or 5 of those main hops that are quite piney.
Wait, which was the floral one?
Cascade can be quite not floral. It's more fruity. It's very like kind of like if you've ever had an IPA that was made in the last 5 years,
Yeah.
you get Cascade. And Citrus a big one now, and that has a lot of floral. But the growing climate, the hop got too popular, so they're trying to grow way more of it than they're actually capable of growing. So it's declined a lot in quality.
Yeah. Well, I've heard it, but I was thinking of I noticed this. We used to do the lager test where we bought all the macro brewery, all those like generic lagers, 20, 30 of them, and did taste tests. And I'm wondering, are the northern ones like the Heinekens and like the ones from Northern Europe, do they use that type of hop? Because they all had those weird like lavendery floral notes to it.
No, normally what they do with pretty much every industrialized lager doesn't actually use either fresh hops or pellets. They use hop shot.
Oh, fair enough.
Because one of the things is like I shit on mass-produced lagers as much as the next guy who has a certain degree of pedigree and beer snobbery. But the thing with it is making a consistent beer every time over years and years and years is extremely hard. So you need to get all the variables down.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And when you do fresh hops, you're usually going to have a range of alpha acids in them and a range. So it's better for them to get an extract that's exactly, let's say, 14.2 on bitterness on the alpha acids, rather than using a hop that's between 11 and 14, because then you can get more bitterness, less bitterness, and so on. So they like to use a lot of the extract products specifically to take out a lot of variables. And
that makes sense because whiskeys and those, they have like a couple year lifespan. So it's a lot easier to like make a blended one because they're not coming out with them so quickly that they need to keep it consistent. You know what I mean? But that's interesting.
Wine, though, it's like one of the reasons why Australian wine got a lot of credits for being very consistent is that Australia didn't, at least at that point, have a lot of growing for grapes. So they would buy grapes from whoever had the best grape harvest that year.
Huh. So
that way they could get the best grapes. But with wines, you'll get like, okay, the 2014 was like much better than the 2012 because the quality of the grapes was different. And it's the same thing with anything that you make from real ingredients. It's going to have a certain variability.
Which I find that's the appeal to it for me. But then again, you're right. That's not a macro level product. That's a micro thing.
Well, and it's the same thing, though, to parallel this back into sexual strategy, is that you'll never be able to turn banging hoes into Budweiser. Because, like, we can talk all we want about how girls are not that different, but every girl has her own, like, little small things that's kind of unique to her.
Yeah.
And it may not be unique traits. It may just be the configuration of those traits. So let's say, and that alone requires you to be somewhat flexible in your approach and kind of rolling with the punches, because a lot of the times I get the feeling that guys really, really, really desperately wants that step-by-step guide that will get them into any girl's pants. And usually
it's an art, not a science.
And it's not going to happen like that. You're always going to have that variability. And even for a guy with rock solid game, he's going to get shot down more than he gets laid. So that's how it's a numbers game. Like if you approach 100, like Krauser, I think is my favorite for this because he's always been really, really honest about that part. That even if you're at the top of your game, your F close rate is not going to be anywhere near, 10, 15, 20%.
No, isn't he the one that made 5% the gold standard?
Yeah, and 5% is pretty in there. You can do a little bit higher on Tinder game if you're just going for the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, or anything is anything. But yeah. Oh, that was the funniest thing, by the way. I don't know if I told you this yet, but I had a client and he was building up his day game, his game, all this stuff. And he's getting like, okay, 5%. I've done 40 approaches, gotten 2. That's 5%. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. You've made it. He goes, what do you mean I've made it? You're essentially where like professional pickup artists are. And he goes, oh, really? That's it? And I'm like, yeah, it's not really as like Chad doesn't exist. It's not as magnificent as you thought, is it? He goes, oh, oh. And I laughed when I heard that. It's like it was actually heartwarming because the guy actually got to make it in those places where like I'm writing my emails about the fuck files are, or you're talking about your clients, or like professional pickup guys are doing their field reports. And they got there and they realized like once you take all the marketing aside, it's not that big of a deal. And you built it up in your head as this like amazing land of whatever. And then you realize, oh, this is what normal life should be like if I wasn't one of those average frustrated chumps. There's an 80s, 90s reference for you. Or as we'd call them today, trads, who has 3 girls in his entire lifetime.
Oh, I think 3 is being generous, dude.
Yeah.
If he looks out, he can get one of the Sun Hat goddesses when he hits his 40s.
Dude, that stuff, I'm so detached from it. Like, I'm not 100% Don Juan of all Don Juans. I'm not the best guy. I've always said that my thing is like I'm above average and that's good enough. But those kind of guys, I'm so detached from their experience. I have never met a girl who had less than 50 end count. And that's from 97 to today. Never met a girl with less than 50. So when I hear all these guys talking about they want virgins, it always strikes me as weird. Because it's just a strange ego investment. Because I'm like, there is nothing I have seen that even makes me think that, yeah, maybe he's on to something. Like, it's not even close. And then the guys talking about how their end counts aren't even close to 50. I'm like, how did you... It's almost like the opposite version of an ego investment. It's such an uninvestment that I'm like, how did you not get at least to like 10?
Well, my view on it is generally that I think the 80-20 kicks in. So you have some guys out there with end counts in the high hundreds, and you have other guys with end counts in the 2s and 3s. But then again, I never really saw end count in itself as a flex.
I used to.
Yeah, I used to too. But then once I kind of got into it deeper, I kind of started to, because I think, and people can give Black Dragon shit for a lot of things. He has 2 perspectives that I really, really think this space could need more of.
Mm-hmm. Number
1, your goal should be to sleep with girls you find attractive. Who cares if other people find them attractive? What's important is you find them attractive enough to want to sleep with them.
Fair.
And number 2 is always look at why you're doing things. Because like you have this amazing scene in How I Met Your Mother where the Barney character has banged like 300 chicks. And the reason why he did it was like some guy in 6th grade told him that he'd slept with 100 girls, and Barney set a goal to beat it. And the whole thing is, like, I find notch count, it's something you should have a high enough notch count to have a good enough comparative reference point for women, and to have enough experience to be a discerning consumer of women. In the same way that you probably don't need to drink every single red wine ever produced in France to have a decent knowledge of French wines, but you should know more than that your favorite wine is red.
Well, that's why I like who did the 30-30-30 rule?
Oh, that Rivellino did the 30-30, 30 notches and 30 years gold.
Yeah. The reason I like that one is because when you look at the APA or any psychological organization, when they talk about those cluster Bs and cluster As, that's what, 5% of the population. I think that's a 3rd standard deviation. Correct me on my math here, math boy.
Go ahead.
All right, so 5%. 5% means 1 in 20. So if you can get a notch count of 20, then statistically speaking, you'll have had one completely crazy chick. The reason I like 30 is because it adds that 50% buffer to that. Okay, so there's a guaranteed chance that I have seen the absolute 3rd third standard deviation outlier in the greatest women out there, and the third standard deviation in the absolute worst women out there. And you're right in that it gives you, so now you actually know what you want. And this ties into ego investment. It's no longer an ego investment because there's nothing to invest in. Like, you already have the numbers. You don't have to invest in any belief system. So if you can't get, once you can get to 30, and for me, that was actually around 30 when I actually had this, where I ran into a girl. I was running game on her with my wingman, Mike. And I think it's my first email I sent out on my fuck files email. And I was running game on this girl. And about 10 minutes into the set, she like let it slip that we had already slept together. And I had no knowledge of her whatsoever. I actually started asking her questions and she started describing the night. And it kind of started to come back, but I still had no idea who she was. And I think every guy should get to that point when he realizes his notch count doesn't matter. Because let's face it, right now, thought culture is one. I think I showed a statistic from some conservative think tank where the amount of virgins and the amount of 10 plus end count thoughts has switched roles, completely switched. So if you aren't at a place where you've had enough sex in your life that the idea of a girl having 50 partners doesn't freak you out, I don't think you're ready yet. I really don't. Like, mentally, you're always going to have that resentment, that fear of missing out, and you're going to be that guy that is the exact example from Facebook that I used, where he was cheating on his wife because she wasn't doing enough, but she's the same religion, and all those weird covert contracts and horrible mental models all built up to this really shitty life experience that nobody can offer advice on anyway. But yeah, the 30 greatest number I've ever seen on that statistic. I don't know if he did that on purpose or not, but it was really brilliant.
No, I did a couple of essays on that. I was trying to look them up, but I couldn't remember what I named them. But the whole thing is, like, I've seen statistics that indicate that over 7 partners has a higher divorce rate.
Yeah, which is true, but that's the problem, is that there's nothing to do to defend against that. Everybody will have had more than 7 partners. And the people who have under 7 partners now, they're probably going to be stunted in some way. So,
well, it's also about the predictive shit. Like, those statistics are useful in the aggregate level for a huge population.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
They're not all that useful on an individual level. It's similar to, like, BMI.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if your nation's BMI is 30, then you're a nation of fat asses. But if your BMI is 30, that may indicate that you're a fat ass, but whether that has an impact on your health depends on how much is muscle, how much is fat, where is your fat placed, and a lot of other factors. And I'm not saying that you should just run down to the cupcake bar and just shove every cupcake in your mouth while you're climbing onto a fucking table. I'm just saying that statistics are not truth for individuals. And this is the same thing. It's like I was reading a book on cult psychology this week.
Yeah.
And it actually had one of the most useful applications of Myers-Briggs type indicator I've ever seen.
So a useful one then, if it's the most. I haven't seen one yet.
Well, what they did with it was they were looking at the degree of how much did people have to adjust to mirror their cult leader.
Mm-hmm.
So they had people do first one survey with how would you have answered before joining this cult? And the second one, how would you answer now that you've joined the cult? And then they did the type indicator on the leader, and it showed that the people had moved from their original personalities to mirroring their leader more. And that was actually useful.
Oh, yeah.
So because that showed a degree of, let's say, personality adaptation towards the primary value characteristics of the group.
Which is exactly what we're seeing right now with this thought apocalypse, as I call it.
Oh, I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, but then again, I like banging thoughts.
No, it's not bad. I mean, are you going to take that word seriously, really? Thought apocalypse? That's why I like it, because it's it takes the piss and shows there's a certain amount of levity to it at the same time. But yeah, you're not going to find the virgins. They just don't exist.
No, but I had this talk with a plate of mine a while ago because
Yeah.
one of her things was just she likes to be really, really honest about what her girlfriends are doing. Not what she's doing, but what all her girlfriends are doing. And there was one of those girls who was looking for a guy who had a notch count of 0.
Mm-hmm.
And why would a woman want a guy who's inexperienced? And my logic is, if you're going to give a guy starfish duty sex, the best guy to give that to is a guy who's not getting laid.
A guy with no context.
Well, if you're not getting laid, then starfish duty sex is feeling like, oh, your ship has finally come in.
Hey, Rolo, I know you got an article on this. Just throw it in the chat, dude. I guarantee he's got one.
So for me, it's just that's kind of the context to the whole thing is guys are so ego invested in their girl being a virgin because they don't trust their dick game. Oh, is Ryan getting another drink?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, it probably is. This is going to be a fun Rule 0. No, so for me, the whole thing is you need to care less about what other people are telling you. Like, you can read all our content, you can read Rolo, you can watch John's streams and so on, but always use your own judgment. Like, I kind of held back on blowing up a lot of the more marketing accounts because I figured, it's a good thing for guys to get scammed a couple times, just like it's a good thing for guys to get kicked in the balls, because if you haven't been kicked properly in the balls, you can never find the red pill. And you can always find the purple pill accounts. They're the guys who haven't gotten their kick to the balls yet. At Carl, are you drunk enough to dispense advice in the corporate arena? What are you wondering about, Maurice? Just drop it in the chat and I'll answer it. I'm not that drunk yet. I've actually been pounding water for the last hour. Or it might be water. It's a clear liquid in a pint glass, so it may be water, it may be vodka. Who knows? I mean, for my persona's sake, I'll say it's vodka and just go with it. But like I said, the most important thing is a lot of the time you get the appearance of cults in this space. And it's usually when you see that guys are very dedicated towards their profits, so to speak. And I always advise you to look up Charlie Manson, because Charlie Manson had rock solid game. He got like 8 or 10 girls to following him, bang whoever he wanted. Johnny Walker is pretty good, but it is fake smoke flavor. Well, it tastes real to me. The smoke flavor in Johnny Walker is just as real as the low notch count the girl who's trying to lock you down tells you.
I like these guys. Very pithy.
It's like the I think it was American Pie that had that 3 rule. It's like when a girl tells you her notch count, you multiply by 3. When a guy tells you his notch count, you divide by 3.
Solid heuristic. Not that it matters. I've always had the rule. I just assume whoever I'm with is me times 2, and it's made things so much easier. It gets it out of the way, that insecurity that maybe she slept with more guys than you, and it makes it an absolute certainty. And so from there, but then what do you do about it?
I can speak for you, but I know she slept with more guys than me. You're Canadian, so it might be different.
No, we're not bad. The States seems to amplify it. Like the Chads in the States outdo this Chads in Canada. I think that might be just a population thing, though. But yeah, 100 is like a big deal here still.
The States amplify everything. It's one of those things that's fucking exhausting with the States.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you actually have a guy who has a YouTube channel where he went through a drive-through at McDonald's in a fucking tank. And if there's anything that symbolizes the United States, it's going through the drive-through at a Mickey D's in a tank.
That's the most kitsch thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, that's almost as good as, the flashing your wine knowledge on Twitter. If there ever was an audience you want to flex wine knowledge to, it's not fucking Twitter.
I hear you on that one. Actually, you know what the most American thing I think I've ever seen was? It was after Osama bin Laden got murdered. There was a guy on his 1 kilometer backyard on a 4-wheeler with an American flag hanging off the back, driving on YouTube, driving it around and just firing off his pistol. Firing and reloading, just screaming woo. And I'm like, that is the most American thing I think I've ever seen. The only way to make it better is if like a 15-year-old blew his hand up with a firework while he was doing it.
Yeah, I know. Ryan misses my puns all the time, Jack. I'm used to it.
Yeah, I just sometimes glaze over them too. Hey, speaking of which, so we were supposed to go off here about 5 minutes ago, but John never gave us a link to join Rule Zero. If you guys don't know, John from Modern Life Dating is hosting it this week. So until he does that, we're either going to run our mouth here or segue off and have breakfast. But I think I got to go help clean the kitchen. But I guess we should probably wind it down in the next 5 minutes anyway. Why don't you do some more puns that I can pretend to ignore, Carl?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to make more jokes about all the guys you banged.
I like banging guys.
But I think the whole thing is, like, we have to, and it's one of those things, like, we have to separate intersexual and intrasexual competition. Mm-hmm. And we have to separate flexing from reality.
100%.
And a lot of the time, what gets views on Twitter is intrasexual competition and flexing.
Especially if you pick the wrong group to intrasexually compete with.
Yeah, well, those whole things with like a girl should know how to cook tweets. You know that's going to piss off the feminists.
Does it ever? I don't know how they find my account.
And all of those things, and you know, it's the thing I had with Rich's thing. So most of the things on his lists that got all that attention were pretty much normal things that every person should kind of learn.
Right. Yeah. Human activities.
Learn to apply heat to food and some seasoning. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't want to live off takeout, do you? You know, learn to be good in bed. Well, do you want to have a shit sex life? I don't. Learn to not do dumb shit that costs you money. Well, do you want to be broke? It's just looking at the antithesis of what his points are. And the fact that people are getting pissed off about it is the same reason why adulting is a thing. It's like, yeah. I just paid my bills. I'm so good at adulting. It's like, you're fucking 40. What's wrong with you?
Well, that was why I was curious. Like, he had it was 7 items on his list. And I'm like, there's no way that those are all equally triggering to these same retards every time. So I tried it. I let out 7 separate tweets on each one of the points. And I found out it was the cooking. That's the only one that gets them mad. They don't care if you call them fat. They don't care if you call them bad in bed. But if you say you can't, like, you should learn how to cook, that's the one that gets everybody riled up. So I found that interesting. And the only explanations I've come up with so far is because that was the one thing there that wasn't value in and of itself. Like, you could, being good in bed means you're good in bed. Like, it's an ego thing for you. But the cooking was about doing something for somebody else. And I think that selflessness was what triggered a lot of those feminist types, which makes sense because I always think of feminism as my dad didn't buy me that pony when I was 6 and I have permanent daddy issues and you can't tell me what to do. Kind of like most libertarians.
Well, I think you have a point on that. And it's kind of one of those things that women don't really want to do. It's a lot of feminism it's very self-centered. So it's all about what she wants and what she wants to do. So the idea of being self-sacrificing, like the idea of cooking a guy a meal, is like the idea of giving him a blowjob, because that's only pleasurable to him for the most part.
Right.
Like some girls do actually get turned on by giving head, but those are fairly rare. So I think that's the whole thing. The idea that women would have to, make some sacrifices and do something nice for someone else, and that there's an expectation that they have to do that. I think that's what triggers them.
Which is kind of funny when you think about that. Because that's kind of like the big problem with the dating and the relationships and why all the guys are going trad right now. Because Briffault's law, girls just don't want relationships, and you can't force them to, and you can't tell them to, and they're going out of their way to be as unattractive as possible for a relationship. And not all, but there's enough that any one girl that opts out of it means there's two guys that now have to fight for the same girl. So if you get, what's feminism? What did they say in that British study? Like 10% of women identify as feminists?
Yeah, something like that.
Take 10% of the population of women and basically turn them into that. You've basically taken 20% of the guys to have them compete over that same one girl. Like, it completely skews things to a ridiculous proportion. Like, even China with their whole issue now, it's like a 1.2 to 1 ratio of men to women. And that's causing serious problems in their economy. America and the West managed to get halfway there without infanticide causing it, which is an impressive feat.
Well, I just don't think I think the whole thing comes down to that guys are so ego invested in this white picket fence, leave it to beaver lifestyle, that they're not willing to give up on the dream. And that's the biggest thing I see with every guy I talk to who's kind of purple pilled, is that they kind of see the reality of things, but they rationalize it away because having that reality means they can never have like the dream they wanted of, the beautiful wife who fixes them a meal when they come home and who meets them at the door with a drink and who's nice and self-sacrificing.
Yeah. Talk about narcissism, by the way.
Yeah, it's narcissistic on both ends. And that's kind of what bothers me, because feminists are narcissistic and self-centered on their end. But the trad guys are just as bad on their end, because they're kind of looking for this family and this lifestyle that never really existed.
Yeah. Oh, it never did. You're right. Norman Rockwell did aspirational stuff, the 50s and the advertising. Donna Reed never existed. That was just like that. The same as you said with Lex Luger. Donna Reed was the Lex Luger of the 1950s. She never existed. She was aspirational. She was there because it made you feel good, so you'd buy a vacuum and some cigarettes. And then watching guys take that literally, I understand why autism is seen as like an epidemic nowadays, because even the tradcon types are essentially autistic about 1950s advertising. Oh, stuff makes me laugh. It really does.
Well, ultimately, I think if there's one lesson to take away here, is don't be a mark for yourself or your guru. It's like the Iron Sheik and Jim Duggan hate each other when they're live, and then they do coke by the side of the road when they're off work.
Right.
And the whole point of me saying that is very few people put the bad stuff on Twitter.
Well, would you? It makes you look less than perfect.
Well, one of the things I'd like to, let's say, take the trad married guys. How many of them would put the fact that they're getting divorced or that they haven't gotten sex from their wife in 2 months on their Twitter? None of them would.
One sec. I'm still listening, but we're having some trouble setting up Rule 0.
Yeah, I gathered. So we should probably wind down those soon.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, let's just call it here. It's been a good run. I'll grab myself a quick bite to eat. I'll help John out. He set up Rule 0. If you guys don't know, John from Modern Life Dating is going to be on his channel. The topic of this one, what was it again? The beta male economy. I love our terms, man. Who comes up with this shit?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you're going to buy something off the internet that it involves a bath, I'm a much bigger fan of bath salts than bath water. At least you can get high and eat someone's face on bath salts.
Right. I'll say then for the guys on this channel, so there was a link that's already out on it. Since the Google Hangouts no longer works, that link no longer works. So keep an eye on Twitter. We'll set up an event and we'll have it running ASAP. So follow anything that happens as of 11:30 on. Those are the links to use, and we'll see you guys there.